So where you from, brother?
I'm straight out of Vegas, man.
Nah. What neighborhood?
The West Side, 89106. Born and raised.
So Lou, man, tell me a little history, bro. What was the scene like when you first got started?
Man, again, man, coming straight out of West Las Vegas. Because as you know, West Las Vegas back in the day was a designated area, man, where only the African Americans could actually partake in just West Las Vegas. And so when you talked about entertainment, you talked about gaming, black folks was actually 90% of the hospitality industry here in Vegas, which they migrated from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. They came to Vegas, man, to actually work in the casinos as casino porters, maids, dealers, etc. But everybody had to actually live in West Las Vegas. In fact, when Sammy Davis would perform on the strip with the Rat Pack,
Right.
with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, he wasn't allowed to live at the casino. He actually had to migrate back to the west side, West Las Vegas, and then actually go back to the strip. And that it takes us into the Moulin Rouge, where again, during those days, the Moulin Rouge was actually there for African Americans, which is located on Bonanza and D Street.
Right.
And so that was strictly for blacks. So, but the Moulin Rouge only lasted roughly 6 months. A lot of people don't know the story about the Moulin Rouge because the casino owners on the strip in downtown, they came in and made sure that the blacks could not participate in their own level of entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so again, when we talk about the industry, I represent the industry. When we say industry, I'm talking about in the streets. And so when we talk about straight out of Vegas, I think this concept was monumental because Vegas has always had a history. There's been some documentaries already talking about the migration of black folks coming to Las Vegas, but the city of Las Vegas never gave the blacks in Las Vegas the level of respect and understanding that we deserve and we desire. Black folks put a lot of work in this town.
Right.
So when I grew up in West Las Vegas, because you were only designated to stay in West Las Vegas, you was forced to live across the street from a drug dealer.
Right.
My neighbor across the street when we were growing up, they were pimps, hoes, and drug dealers.
Right.
The guy next door to us was the pastor.
Right.
My father was a state representative.
Right.
So he was a state representative, but you had that kind of foolishness right across the street because you couldn't live anywhere else.
Right.
And then back in my day, farthest north was Cheyenne. There was nothing past Cheyenne but desert and the pig farm.
Right.
So when we start talking about entertainment, I can remember as a kid, as most black folks know, the only level of entertainment that we had was the church. So if you had a talent, the only way you could display your talent was in church because here in Las Vegas, the racism was so damn thick that black folks could not be on the strip, even in terms of just displaying your talents being promoted. So I remember when the West Las Vegas Library Theater was built. So 300-seat venue, West Las Vegas. That was our first venue of its kind in West Las Vegas where black folks could actually come and display their talents on a real live stage. Because as you know, growing up in the black community, there's a lot of talent.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We got tons of talent, you know. And so at that time, when they built the West Las Vegas Theater, that was our first platform, man, where we could actually go and then display our talents.
Now, I was doing my research and I heard the ATTICTECH formed together at the Moulin Rouge agreement, stating and telling the press that if they do not allow the blacks to be able to sit in while the blacks are performing on the strip, that they would march and put it on national TV. And that's where the Moulin Rouge agreement started, and that's where the Jim Crow era broke. Elaborate on how we control the entertainment side of Vegas.
Oh man, I would be delighted. Again, going back Jim Crow's, I was a youngster.
Yes.
Didn't really understand it until I got into school and I started getting diverse and getting educated about the history of the Jim Crow. But let it be known, no mistakes, Vegas is the Mississippi of the West.
Right.
It's the Mississippi of the West. So, again, when we talk about entertainment, the Strip has never been friendly to us other than going out there and working and being indentured service to them white folks. Okay, so make no mistakes about that. Now, the reason why they migrated here was because of prevailing wage. You can make more money in the South. You can make more money here than you can do in the South. You know, a dishwasher, busboy can make $12, $13, $14 an hour, whereas you can't make that kind of money nowhere else. But they don't pay you to think. They pay you to use your damn hands. So when you talk about entertainment, you go back into West Las Vegas, back in the day, there was so many nice spots, man. Moulin Rouge, C's Cotton Club, you know, all these type of spots, man, that was awesome, where we just had our own autonomy to do what we wanted to do, 24 hours. Of course, you had the drugs, you had the hoes, you had the pimps, you had the prostitutes, you had all the hustlers, you had everything. Everything that came with that nightlife, you had that. As a youngster, I was able to see that. So growing up in the city with all of this money, then coming from a neighborhood that where there was no money, you was always in the mindset of how I can get paid. You know, and so again, when the West Las Vegas Library became our stomping ground for us doing shows, bringing in rap artists, bringing in productions, bringing in plays, bringing in singing, bringing in all these kind of things, man, I was able to use that platform myself in the early 80s is coming in, well, late 80s, early 90s coming in, using that platform, bringing in some of the artists. Because again, the town did not recognize the city. Now, I'm gonna fast forward. I started a company called Fan Club Entertainment along with my friend Jeff Jones and a couple of my homeboys from the neighborhood. Now, because I had such a great relationship with a lot of people around the country, and my claim to fame, I did stand up for almost 20 years. So again, HBO, Comic View, all that stuff.
Some of the first radio personalities and DJs and even the artists that you recognize or pay homage to.
Well, one of the biggest guys, man, because you know Power 88, shout out to Power 88, 42-year-old radio station, the only black radio station that's of substance in this city.
Right.
So back in the day, you had to give homage, man, to a guy named LC, Lou Collions. LC now lives in Dallas, Texas. He works for J Records. LC, straight out of the neighborhood, man, he was one of the first general managers over at Power 88. LC also had a love for music, so Vegas just started to become the entertainment capital of the world, globally. Within the last 20 years, we didn't have the major concerts that you see now. All the nightclubs that now exist in Vegas, that were freestanding nightclubs. Now the casinos came in, monopolized everything, and they poured all the nightclubs into the casinos. Nightclubs, bowling alleys, and all that. When I was growing up, they didn't have that kind of monopoly.
Right.
So there were a lot of freestanding clubs in West Las Vegas where we could actually go in and penetrate, and then as a black man, you could go in, bring in action, you could make money. You know, and like Uptown was one of the hottest clubs back in the day. The Plush Horse was one of the hottest clubs back in the day. You know, the Troubadour was one of the hottest clubs back in the day, where you got black-owned cats running these clubs. Then you had, from that, you had guys emerging on the scene like, you know, my man, just drew a blank.
Silky D.
Silky D. Silky D was the first cat from the neighborhood, man, to ever do a commercial.
Yes.
Silky D did a commercial, man. There was this venue back in the day. It was called LA Street.
Yes.
Silky D was one of the first rappers that came out the neighborhood, along with Paulie Mack. Sugar D and Paulie Mack, as you guys know, Paulie Mack is the ringmaster today. But them two guys was one of the first guys to come out. And then you also had T-Bone and my man Durrell, out of the same neighborhood. They were neighbors. They came out. They was one of the first guys to drop a single. Then you had King J. King J came out. King J was one of the first real big artists from West Las Vegas to get signed to Profile, which is now Def Jam.
Wow.
Yeah, Profile Records. So Run DMC, Tribe Called Quest, all them cats. King J was the first guy to get the first deal coming up out of the neighborhood, signed with these cats. And so then you had cats like DJ Twins, the Twins. You can't forget about the Twins. These guys were instrumental. George Luster. George is doing time. He's in the penitentiary right now. but Hurt 'em Bad. Hurt 'em Bad was the guy who entertained the whole entire community. These are guys who never got to the strip. These are guys who never got to the strip. Then you start getting guys like myself, started having breakthroughs, getting on the strip. So you got a lot of promoters in the city right now, black promoters, saying, hey, we the first guys. No, you stand on a lot of goddamn shoulders. You ain't the first guys to do shit. You know what I'm saying? Bottom line. Now, back when there was an incident, the Murderers Clique, I think it was, when the officer got murdered, Officer Prendez.
Talking about Desert Mob? Or did Murderers Clique?
Or Desert Mob.
Desert Mob.
Well, there was a member from one or two of those groups.
Tragic. Yeah, that was Desert Mob.
That was Desert Mob, okay. Thank you for the clarification. At that time, when Officer Prendez got gunned down at that resident by that individual, at that particular time, the city was so damn pissed that they decided to ban hip hop in Las Vegas. All hip hop. We banned hip hop. And this might have been in 2004, 2005. That time I had my company downtown, Fan Club Entertainment. They decided to ban hip hop. So the mayor comes out and says, we're not doing any more hip hop in Las Vegas. The sheriff comes out, Sheriff Bill Young, said, we're not doing any more hip hop in Las Vegas. So now, I'm not a hip hop guy. I'm not a rap artist. I don't write rhymes. I don't do none of that shit. But I'm a business owner. So at that time, I was trying to talk to the hip hop artists to come together and unite because, again, this is Vegas. It's the entertainment capital of the world. If you allow these white folks to come out and make a band of that magnitude, that destroys you. Because at the same time, we're making somewhat of a breakthrough on the strip where you can actually get on the strip. A lot of big artists are now coming to Vegas. So now we can put you in front of these artists. But when they say ban hip hop, all hip hop, I went out on the front. I had a press conference in front of my office, and I said, we're not going to allow this. I'm in the entertainment world. Now, I had a major connect, which was Tina Davis. Tina Davis was the one who actually managed Chris Brown. Tina Davis and I were friends. Tina Davis allowed me to be the conduit between Las Vegas, entertainment, music, and Def Jam Records, 2004. That's when it was. So the band came. At that time, I had a brother who got murdered probably about a year before they did the band. And my brother was a hip hop artist too. Rest in peace, Drake. Got murdered in the studio on Sahara. At that time, when they put the ban on hip hop, there was a writer that wrote for Las Vegas Weekly. His name was Matt, cool white boy. So they interviewed me. So why are you coming out against this ban? I said, well, I know that Vegas is the Mississippi of the West. This ain't got nothing to do with racism. How can you ban hip hop on an isolated incident? The guy, yeah, he was a rapper, but he wasn't rapping when he shot the police officer. That was something totally different. So when they put the ban on hip hop in Vegas, again, I didn't stand for it. Well, I was trying to rally all the artists, all the hip hop heads. Dude, come on out and stand up for what you believe in. Because I'm going to stand on the front line for you because this ain't right. Constitutionally, this is not right. Well, it was a big media frenzy. After that, the police started following me. I started getting followed by the police, getting pulled over by the police to the point where when they pulled me over, I said, you need my license and you need my license registration? We don't need that. We already know who you are. So I started getting harassed by local law enforcement because I didn't go for the ban on hip hop in Vegas. Now, when my brother got killed, he was a hip hop artist. The guy who killed Officer Prendez was a hip hop artist. So they actually tried to lump the two, where your brother was murdered at the hand of a gun. He was murdered in the studio. Officer Prendez was gunned down by a hip hop artist. So how can you come out against that when your brother was murdered the same way Officer Prendez was murdered, so to speak? So he tried to lump the two, but I said you can't associate two isolated incidents. And so from that, my plight has always been, man, to look out for the locals in Vegas. Now, I was the only guy and one of the first guys to have the contacts and the relationships to come back to the city and make sure that everybody got heard, everybody got that level of respect. Because nobody else had the relationship that Lou Collions had.
That's true, man. And I thank you for what you have done, and I commend you for your accolades, the achievements that you are going to set after this and for this. Let's bring up the speed. Peace.